My Hero Academia is a manga series written by Kohei Hirokoshi in 2014, spanning over 400 chapters and ended its run last year. The story follows a teenage boy, Izuku Midoriya, who wanted to be like his favourite superhero, All Might. In this universe, 80% of the population have these superpowers, which are also known as quirks, and most users who inherit these powers either become heroes, vigilantes, or villains. Izuku, however, did not possess any quirks until he meets a man who was All Might, and with All Might being the benevolent guy that he is, he takes Izuku under his wing, gives him training which strengthens him up physically and mentally until the instance where Izuku eats All Might hair, which gives him the quirk All for One. So the game is that is being reviewed is My Heroes One Justice, which is a 3D arena fighter developed by King and published by Bandai Namco in 2018 for platforms such as Steam, Xbox One, PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. But will the game be any good? Let's find out. Presentation in these sort of games is always important. My Heroes 1 Justice uses the Unreal 4 engine, which is below the 5th and current Unreal engine, and I'm thinking, how could a game like this be graphically better than Unreal Engine 5? Well, let's begin. You can see the colour palettes and the models look like the characters that are represented from the anime series itself, and honestly, with the way it's presented, I see no fault with it. I feel that they are a lot better than I actually anticipated when it comes to no surprise of how bare bone and ugly Unreal Engine 5 models tend to be. And regarding that, most of the models that is used by Unreal Engine 5 just seems lifeless. This is where I feel Unreal Engine 4 actually feels more fluid in movement, has better design with the characters, and not only that, it seems to have more vibrant in its vibrancy in general. But then again, that's the thing with most of these arena fighter games, that they do have good model designs and graphically speaking, so to say. But when it does come to the graphics, I feel the arenas are more interesting than majority of the arena fighters out there. For example, Ninja Storm, A Hero Nobody Knows, or If, have very spacious areas, which doesn't really add much to the fun factor of the presentation. But when you come to My Heroes One Justice, they do have a lot of spacious areas, sure, but it also, there's a lot of destructible items like chairs, tables and whatnot, adding to that sense of immersion as if you were fighting in a classroom or a forest or outside a school or so on. I mean, sure, trees in real life don't smash if you yeet someone into it, but I feel the destructible items make it feel like the anime itself. With that also being said, unlike If, Ninja Storm, A Hero Nobody Knows, One's Justice allows you to run up and take the fight to the side of the buildings, which with that sort of movement is pretty interesting, which I have to admit does look pretty cool, because it's that type of vibe that gives me a sort of I wouldn't say nostalgia, but kind of a feeling towards a 90s PS1 game like Blast Chambers, where there's moments you could just run up the walls and take the combat there, and I feel that's actually pretty cool. But also there's another thing I would like to add in the presentation, that if you've ever played a standard 3D fighter, we're not talking about anime arena fighters, an actual 3D fighter, there are arenas in this game that has vibes similar to Virtua Fighter and Soul Calibur, where some arenas will have ring outs, which kind of is nice, breaking away the monotony of fighting through places that have destructible and items and whatnot. Although, me personally, I do find this a little bit weird that this sort of gameplay is in the game itself, and a arena fighter of all things. Now, coming to mention the next part where I mention that the graphics of the characters in the rosters there are 21 characters, including a few unlockable characters, being All for One and two DLC characters. Now, when you look at these characters, they sure look like their anime counterparts and are really amazing to look at because, again, thanks to the graphical powerhouse that is the Unreal Engine 4, this shows the presentation itself of the game and the characters and the arenas. So now we got the presentation out of the way. How about we move on to the gameplay? As I mentioned previously, the gameplay is an arena fighter, and funny enough, when I was playing it before writing up this review, the controls to me feels like Kill la Kill If in some way, and I say that as a compliment. But unlike Kill la Kill If, sorry Kill la Kill, this game is packed out with many modes and it is very dedicated, like story mode, mission mode, training mode, local versus and online versus, which I have to say is pretty standard. And by also standard of these games of these nature, the online mode is pretty fucking dead, so I would just forget about ever wanting to play online. But however, with it also being pretty standard, because you're actually getting a lot to work with to keep you distracted, aim up, collect, and just level up or whatever. The story mode can be easily sped run if you're already familiar with the anime slash manga series. Another thing I should mention in this game is it allows you to customize your characters, which, surprising enough, you don't see this sort of like customization in games such as Ninja Storm or Dragon Ball. But in all fairness, I don't consider this to be either new or revolutionary. But when it comes to the controls, again, I'm referencing Kill la Kill If because it does feel somewhat similar. And again, I say that with a compliment because it's not really that super hard to get acquainted with, especially with the controls. And with the controls being like Kill la Kill If, you have a jump button which is pretty standard for most arena fighters as a whole, and there are 3 attacks. And since we're going to be probably going it off the Xbox like controller template, it's going to be pretty much like this. X is a standard attack which allows you to do an array of combos, whilst Y and B are your quirk attacks. Left bumper is dash, right bumper is block, with the addition of the right and left triggers being tag support, so when you're in a bit of a squeeze and you need help, well, you know which buttons to press. Now, when it comes to the mechanics part, throwing is where you hold right bumper and X, which allows you to grapple your opponent and throw them or do any damage of the sort, which is actually pretty cool because again, it's something you really don't see much in an arena fighter, which is another thing that's pretty interesting whilst mentioning throwing, because I feel throwing does quite a bit of damage, and for something of that nature seems a bit busted, but I would also say pretty decent if you know if it helps benefits you. But also when I say this, because when you have the right bumper button, you can press Y or B for quirk finishers. Now these quirk finishers can result a lot of damage or finishing your opponents depending, and if you get it at the right time, you could probably mostly finish them off just to get that plus ultra. Now, when it also comes to the combat for Bandai Namco games, in a sense, it's still the same premise where you bash buttons and do combos here and then. But saying that, it doesn't feel like a caveman style like you would see in something like, again, Ninja Storm for reference. And this is where I'll give Bandai Namco credit for making this game seem a bit more intricate in terms of fighting. In parenthesis to this, there are plenty of mechanics in this game that I should go into. Let's go into it, shall we? So, the mechanics is kind of here and there depending on how you wish to view them. Now, I obviously mentioned the ring out, but that's not really a mechanic. I feel that's more of a gimmick as kind of referencing to mostly 3D fighters of this day and age still. Well, not really day of age, we still got like Virtual Fighter that still follow this. But regardless of that, we're going to go into the most important parts of the mechanics. First off is splatting. Now, splatting is quite unique. This is what happens when a character gets hit and travels at ridiculous speed, to which they get embedded into either a wall or a floor. Once stuck, the character, either being you or the computer, cannot attack, which means they are also at the disadvantage of being attacked themselves, which is also pretty funny because whilst you can still like combo them after doing a wall splat, you can't wall splat or floor splat into the same wall or floor a second time. Now, there are dash cancels and air recoveries, which is pretty standard with some defensive mechanics. Now, one of the first defensive mechanics is just defend. Oh wait, this is not Garo Mark of the Wolves. I mean just guarding, which is like perfect defense, if you will, where from time to time you will have to time it correctly in order to get the hit on your opponent the next time, which leaves a small window of opportunity to attack before your opponent's next attack can come out with. And there's another thing called guard break, which sounds as it should, which also kind of referencing Garo Mark of the Wolves in another way, where the bar begins at green and then goes completely through yellow, orange and red right before completely running out. Once the bar has fully ran out, it will turn grey and flash red. But when your bar is also depleted, attempting to block an attack will cause your guard to break, and after your guard has been broken, your character will have time to recover, and during that time you can be attacked by your opponent. Just keep that in mind. Just guarding does not, however, reduce your guard bar. Well, that's really decent for a game of that nature, but you know, whilst I feel like this game has been praised for being intricate and having beautiful models, I think it's time to have a bit of a complaint. Oh boy, complaints. So I'm going to make this clear. The game itself is not actually bad. I feel this game can be pretty good for what it is, but there are a few complaints that I have to bring up. Now, the first one is going to be the camera, because as you can see by most of the gameplay as of recently regarding this, the camera is all over the place and it's really hard to focus on who you are attacking, and I feel that's actually pretty annoying. I mean, I'm trying to do my best to focus on trying to fight the AI, and when I do fight the AI or someone like online, which unfortunately is not possible here, I can't really focus because of that camera. It really makes it hard to even get close by when especially the AI tries to be way too human. I feel I needed to add this because whilst you would play the game as you would with another person in Arena Fighters, the fact most of us, including myself, everyone just jumps all over the place and whatnot. To the AI, which is constantly doing that, making them rather difficult to deal with. Now, I understand that it actually takes time to get into these sort of intricacies, especially with the game, but I do have an issue with the AI itself. It acts a little bit too human, which sure is almost like you would expect in these sort of games, with the addition of that camera being really fucking unbearable from time to time. And with the roster, I feel that they are good for the most part as they emulate the characters in the anime slash manga. I feel how to say that is some of them do need to be worked on. So yeah. Okay, I'm giving this game a 7 out of 10. And I'm just going to make this clear, I am not a fan of the series. But just because I don't like the series don't mean I'm actually going to hate on this game. Because again, this game is not really that bad. I've played better arena fighters, sure. And again, Kill la Kill If is being one of them. In short, it's done plenty up on Kill la Kill If with the content and the array of rosters and obviously the graphics and arena, which is a plus. I would have said this would be personally better than Kill la Kill If. Sadly, that is not the case here, because here's the thing with this game, it's got the standards of a fighting game and the hallmarks of one, but it's just not really that great, especially with how wacky the AI can be and that annoying fucking camera. There is plenty of fun to be had here regardless, I won't lie to you, but me personally, I just feel like if they sorted out that fucking camera, it would have been a perfect 8 out of 10 full stop. Now, the controls itself are actually pretty decent as I mentioned beforehand, and lastly, it is graphically an impressive looking game when it's using an engine such as Unreal Engine 4. So if you feel like getting this game at some point, I'd say get it on Xbox or Steam, but just wait for like on the sales, because I mean $15.99 for a game of this nature isn't necessarily that bad. But considering that, aside from it being good in some parts, and uh, it's just mediocre really. So if you do plan on getting it, I'd say get it on sale if this is your type of game. With that being said, if you liked what you saw, remember to like, comment and subscribe if you so choose to. My name is Nate, follow me on Instagram, and have a nice day.